Hi, everybody. This is your Professor Ian. This is just an update for week 6 of our course. So here we are, week 6, coming into, I guess, the home stretch. Um, so I just went through everything from last week, your comments and videos about Bloodchild and the Ledge. So let's start there. I think the Ledge wins as far as everybody's favorite. There were a couple people who really championed Bloodchild and stood up for that, and a couple people who really didn't like Bloodchild, and I expect that reaction because it is a little gorier science fiction. It's pretty hard science fiction. I liked Stevie's comment. She said, her brain doesn't work like that as far as that kind of gory science fiction. And I think it was Talia as well, who was very much not a fan of Bloodchild, which is totally fine. I'm personally a fan of science fiction, love the stuff, so of course I gravitate towards Butler. I've read a lot of what she's written, so if you like that, you should really read other stuff that she's written. In her book, in her novel Dawn, she has a scene with a threesome with two humans and an alien, a different kind of alien, not like a weird giant centipede scorpion creature. But she does all kinds of fun, like gender bending and just challenging those kind of, like, those categories of race and gender that we think of, right? Butler's really good at playing with those limits, and that's what she's doing in Bloodchild, right? Amanda noted that the first sentence of Bloodchild sets it up as like a coming of age story, right? It's told first person, and the narrator says, it's the first line tells you that this is the end of Gan's childhood, right? Um, and it's setting up as something we call a Bildungsroman. It's a German word. You spell it Bildungroman, and it just means, like, it means coming of age story, right? So the first sentence sets it up for that. That this is the moment when Gan had to make that choice and enter into the adult world, right? And he does that by taking Tagote's egg. That's how I pronounce her name, Tagote. I'm not, it's a made-up race of alien bug creatures, so I can't really, I don't know where you would start, but I say Tagote. But anyways, the twist on that, of course, is again is a boy, right? So the whole thing is centered around this, like, male pregnancy, and this is a central thing that she's playing with there, that expectation that we have as readers. She's also playing with one of the central ideas or central kind of conventions in science fiction is, kind of that Star Trek kind of convention where humans are going out into the world and encountering aliens, and sometimes they have to fight them, like Alien, the movie Alien, or other movies like that, Predator or something. They have to fight the predators, but it's not usually the case where humans are in the much more subservient position like we have in Bloodchild, right? But in Bloodchild, the humans that are on this alien world that is the Talik's world, right? They're living in a preserve, and they're kept safe by this alien race, and they're kept safe partially so that they can be used for breeding stock, right? That's what's happening in the story. When they first land on the story or on the planet, it seems like the Talik were just like using them and maybe not being as careful with them as they could be, and so some of the Talik set up this preserve so that they could use the humans and breed them, right? And this is part of the reason why Gan and his brother are seen as better hosts for the eggs, right? Because female humans will go on to create more humans, and therefore you can keep the incubators for your eggs. You can make new ones if you don't impregnate the human women, because you want to keep them producing more humans, right? So humans have been reduced to cattle, basically, right, to livestock. And that's not a normal convention of science fiction. It's kind of turning it on its head a little bit, and it's and so it's a lot of fun, right? And Giselle made the comparison to Alien with the chest bursters, right? If you've seen Alien, the face huggers and the chest bursters, and there's definitely that similarity. And both of Alien and Bloodchild are playing on the idea of pregnancy, right? One that's kind of the central metaphor of Alien is that they're bursting out as this, like, a disgusting version of a pregnancy and delivery. This grotesque version of that. That's part of what's happening there. Anyways, But Bloodchild, it's playing with these conventions, your expectations in this science fiction genre. But ultimately, it's setting up this moral choice for Gan. Did he make the right choice? Should he have taken the eggs? Should he have refused, like his older brother? Right? Because you get these siblings set up as kind of like his different choices. Should he follow his brother's choice and rebel against the system, even though it's kind of useless? Right? Like the humans don't have any choice. They can't actually rebel and like fight against these aliens and win. But does that mean they should give up? Um, Anyways, I like Jeff's point too. He noted that the lack of opening exposition in the story, like she just throws you into the world. I think who said that? Ricardo made that point too. He liked that about Bloodchild, where he just throws you into the world where we're just in it right away, right? And Jeff noted this is a good learning lesson for us as writers, and I agree. She doesn't set up the world for us right away. It comes gradually, but she does a lot of world building, which is a key to like fantasy and science fiction, setting up this brand new world. But she does it as you work through the story. So think about that as writers. You don't always need to clobber your reader over the head with your world, right? With this world you're setting up. Sometimes if you bring them in, right, and you can set it up as you go along. And this is especially true with genre fiction like science fiction. We know I told you with science fiction, so you take it for like aliens don't bother us as much, especially if you're into science fiction. I know some people reacted negatively because they don't like science fiction, and I get that. But if you're like me and you're into science fiction, as soon as you pick it up, it doesn't bother you as much because you're like, okay, I don't know where I am, I don't know what the Tlick are, but that's okay. I like science fiction. I like this genre, so I'm willing to give it a shot and move along with it, right? So this is part of what genre does, is it has certain conventions that we know, and so we can accept it in different ways. Same with the ledge. The ledge is also very much a genre called naturalism, which isn't really as popular now. Kind of had its heyday in the late 19th century. I would, if you wanted to get into it, I would argue that naturalism went on to really influence detective fiction to this day, right? But especially like hard-boiled detective fiction of the 30s and the 40s, which is still felt today, right? Because naturalism is all about human nature, right? And in this story, we see this guy who's filled with hubris, right? This unrelenting arrogance and pride in his own ability, even in the face of this terribly dangerous aspect of nature, right? One little mistake, their skiff, their little boat is not tied properly, and that's it. They're dead, right? And he doesn't really seem to respect that. He seems to respect his own abilities more, right? So this is a hallmark of naturalism. And a number of people noted that the story was kind of predictable in ways. And I think Jason noted that there's a lot of irony set up as you're reading through, which is very true. The imagery is kind of gloomy, right? I was having discussion on Perusal with Jeff about that. The description of the ledge itself, the rib sticking out the belly of the water, is these like bodily, almost grotesque images of nature, right? So you get this all set up, and of course, I told you it was a naturalist story. The genre of naturalism always ends badly because humans, it's always about an arrogant hero or a hero with some kind of flaw that they can't see how that's going to destroy them, and it always ends poorly for them. So this is no difference, right? He his son and his nephew and his dog all perish in the cold sea because they can't because of his arrogance, more or less, right? Otherwise, there's in terms of writing, a number of you noted that Linda especially noted that the description was great, and it really is a very carefully written story with you can just picture the whole thing happening, right? It's very, very vividly painted. So in terms of using description, it's great. But also, if you're rereading it, do think about the kinds of adjectives and imagery he's setting up. It seems very matter of fact, his description of the environment. But again, if you start interrogating some of the metaphors he uses and the imagery, none of it is very like happy and optimistic, right? It's all kind of grotesque and dark, and that's setting up that ending for us. And Evelyn noted the depiction of the man's hubris in the beginning is also very, very powerful, and should give you a tip off of what's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen. Maybe you don't, who knows if they're going to die, but something bad is definitely going to happen. That's set up very clearly for us through his writing, right? So there's some good stuff to think about in terms of writing in that story as well. So those are the two stories. This week, we're looking at another story. Remember to get your short story response in. That was due yesterday, Sunday, the 12th. You can still turn that in this week, so please do get that in if you haven't already. I'll be marking those later this week. I want to mark your proposals first so you can get some feedback for the story, because this week is all about the peer editing, or mostly about your peer editing workshop, which begins on the 15th. You have until the 15th, Wednesday, July 15th at 11:59 to get your rough draft posted, and then comment on 2 of your peer stories by Friday, July 17th. So, if you're stuck with the story, come and talk to me as soon as possible. We can discuss it. Otherwise, the workload's a little lighter this week. It's like week 3 when we did peer editing for the first story. There's one story to read this week. It's I think it's only 7 pages. But I will warn you, if you found Bloodchild weird, you might find this one weird too. It's, there's kind of a joke at the center of it. But it's also a very philosophical story. So it's really interesting what he's doing in terms of humor and seriousness at the same time. And if you figure out, what the joke is, like who the I is and what he's talking about, feel free to try to share it, because it really enriches the reading, I would say. And yeah, that's it. Remember, your second story is due on the 19th, the end of this week. Take a look at the instructions for the portfolio, because there's kind of a quick turnaround time between story number 2 and that portfolio assignment, right? About 2 weeks. So I'll have your papers marked by Friday the 24th. Then you need to revise and think about that during the next week. So look at the instructions ahead of time, please, and email me email me. Email me if you have any questions or concerns about anything, but especially the portfolio. Okay, thank you very much.